Hong Kong English is the dialect of the English language used in Hong Kong. The dialect is a result of Hong Kong's British overseas territory history and the influence of native Cantonese speakers. Hong Kong predominantly uses British spellings. Pronunciations and words are also predominantly British, although influences from American, Canadian and Australian English do exist as a result of Western TV and Internet culture. Cantonese English, in theory, refers to the accent and characteristics of English spoken by native Hong Kongers and other Cantonese people. Overall, it is primarily spoken by native Hong Kong language speakers. Therefore, although it is called Hong Kong English, it is not only spoken in Hong Kong. People such as who come from Macau, Canton of those whose first language is Cantonese speaking it, since many of the characteristics in Hong Kong English are perceived as erroneous. The term is often used by locals as a disparagement rather than to describe linguistic identity. The majority of Hong Kongers and Macau people with English proficiency tend to follow British English, American English or a mixture of the two. Background: English is one of the official languages in Hong Kong, and is used widely in the government, academic circles, business and the courts. All road and government signs are bilingual, and English is as equally valid as Chinese on legal and business standings. People with higher education, past experience of living in English-speaking countries, or who constantly interact with Hong Kong's English-speaking expatriate communities, generally speak an acquired form of English. Accent and spelling preference may vary from person to person, depending on the people they have interacted with and the country they have studied in. For most ordinary local Hong Kongers, however, the English spoken is generally typical of foreign language learners. Cantonese influenced pronunciation with some acquired received pronunciation characteristics, and with vocabularies and sentence structure generally more formal than those of native speakers. For instance, contractions and slang are not used, and many idioms are alien to Hong Kongers as they do not pertain to English-speaking countries' cultures. The falling English proficiency of local English teachers has come under criticism. English in Hong Kong remains primarily a second language, in contrast to Singapore where English has been shifting toward being a first language. Spoken characteristics: voicing of consonants. Consonants in Cantonese are all voiceless except nasals and semivowels. As a result, D, Z, and D are pronounced, and th. There is a tendency for theta to undergo fronting and become f, so through may be pronounced as foo and 3 may be phi. However, this is variable, so some speakers pronounce thin as theta n, while others pronounce it as thin. Th tends to become unaspirated t, so there is two and there is t. This is reported to be very widespread, so this is nearly always tis, and brother is butter. Devoicing of final consonants. Most people do not distinguish between voiced and voiceless word final stops, making bat and bad homonyms. Sh. Some do not distinguish, and per second. In Cantonese these sounds are allophonic. This new condition does not appear on nearly all the younger, or even the middle-aged Hong Kongers. Tr corruption of tr to t often occurs. Chain and train are pronounced both tsen, but some speakers pronounce the word train as Like many places in Britain and the US, Hong Kong English is non-rhotic, which means is not pronounced except before a vowel. However, with the influence of American programs shown in TV, young people in Hong Kong have started to pronounce the sound as in general American English. Some people pronounce as with, except when followed by a consonant other than G or K. Rain sounds like wing, and free like fee. Some people pronounce as L before rounded vowels. Road sounds like low, room like loom, etc. WH is pronounced as with, as in English and most American dialects. V. Many Chinese people cannot pronounce V as native English speakers do because the V sound has no equivalent in Cantonese, Mandarin, and many other Chinese varieties, but, in the case of other Chinese varieties, such as Wu and Hakka, there is an equivalent of the V sound. Hence, speakers of those varieties have little difficulty pronouncing this sound. Some people read V as with, other V becomes with or F, mostly with a consensus yet no obvious pattern. And often N is changed to L. Many people in Hong Kong, particularly the younger generation, mix up the N and L sounds in English because there is a general trend of merging of N into L in Hong Kong Cantonese. In Cantonese, the original correct pronunciation of, for example, meaning lady, female, woman is NY, but is almost always pronounced LY in modern Hong Kong usage. Also, the correct pronunciation of is ne, but most people pronounce lay in Hong Kong. Closing parenthesis. Nasals in English are stronger than in Cantonese. L vocalization is common. Final, dark L, asterisk L, is often realized as in Polish, Russian and Brazilian Portuguese, e.g. bell becomes pu, and milk becomes milk. This U is sometimes strengthened and becomes like ow. J, G, D is commonly pronounced as TS. It is less noticeable as there is no contrast in the initial position between TS and T in both Cantonese and English. Many people also merge the sound drive with D. They pronounce both TS. A speaker of Hong Kong English differentiates the pronunciations of the words affect and effect, are often emphasizing the vowel. Pronouncing affect as AFK and effect as IFK. Most people realize as a letter is pronounced LTAR, locker is pronounced LK, etc. The sound is realized as O, sir is pronounced SOE, hurt is pronounced hoa, etc. Merging A with man and men, mass and mess, guess and gas are pronounced is the same way. Confusing with I, seat, and sit are pronounced both sit. In contrast, big is pronounced as PK. This is because in Cantonese, the check tones TKP have only one vowel assigned to them that is approximate to I or. Merging with U, foot, and food are pronounced both fut. Z. The letter Z is generally pronounced GST, IST, IZT, or GZT, derived from a British pronunciation, Zide, now considered archaic elsewhere. The usual pronunciations, ZD, and Z, are not understood by some. Intonation multisyllable words are often differently stressed. For example, while the word latte is pronounced leet in most variants of the English language, it is usually pronounced latia in Hong Kong English, with the second syllable stressed instead of the first. Omission of entire R syllables in longer words. Difference becomes TFNS and temperature becomes TMPSO. Friends becomes FNS. Words beginning with unstressed syllables con are generally pronounced its stressed form kn with a lower pitch e.g. connection, consent, condition. Words beginning with stressed syllable com e.g. competition, common, and compromise are pronounced km. The schwa tends to be pronounced as in final closed syllables. Ticket is pronounced tekt, and carpet is pronounced kapt. The suffix age is generally pronounced at. Message is pronounced mseit. Package is pronounced pkat, etc. Lack of double consonantal endings. Due to Cantonese phonology, many Hong Kongers have difficulty pronouncing double consonant endings, except when the second element is fricative, e.g. think as thing, slam as slem, white as y, scent and scent as sen. sense is unaffected. Finals like kt are reduced to k. Lack of structure of diphthong plus consonant. In Cantonese, there is no structure of diphthong plus consonant. As a result, en becomes en, em becomes mn, becomes n, on becomes onan, becomes an, ek becomes ek, ok becomes ok, el becomes u, etc. For the case an, at, or ak, the ending consonant is generally omitted, resulting in a. Others. Many Chinese will speak a foreign language with the same characteristic monosyllabic staccato of spoken Chinese, with varying degrees of the natural liaisons between syllables that natives employ. In a similar vein, they often pronounce syllables as if words were transliterated into Cantonese. Cameron is pronounced as based on its transliteration. Basic is pronounced as. When speaking English, many people tend to assign one of the 6 tones of the Cantonese to different words, giving it a Cantonese style. E.g., most Hong Kongers would pronounce there and there differently, giving a higher pitch to there t and a lower pitch to there t. Exaggeration of certain final consonants, for example per second to c and d, sounds of the past tense form of verbs to tet. Differences or omission in ending sounds, as the ending consonants are always voiceless and unreleased in Cantonese with the exceptions of per meter, n, and n, similar to Basel German. Pronouncing the silent with per hour sounds in words like Greenwich, Bonham, Chatham, Beckham are often reflected in the transliteration of the words. For example, Beckham is transliterated, merging the contrast of voiceless, voiced consonants with aspirated, unaspirated if any contrast exists in Cantonese. This is because English voiceless consonants are most often aspirated, whereas the voiced ones are always unaspirated. The stop p becomes p and b becomes p, t becomes t and d becomes t, k becomes k and becomes k, t becomes ts and d becomes ts. Merging voiceless, voiced consonants into voiceless if there is no contrast in aspirated, unaspirated in Cantonese. Both f and v become f, both z and per second become per second, both and become per second. The only exception might be that theta and th are never confused. Due to difficulty in pronouncing theta and th, many pronounce theta as f and th as t. Confusion between homographs, e.g., the noun resume and the verb resume. Grammar. Omitting articles like the and a. Contractions such as aren't are almost never used, even in conversations, as English in Hong Kong is used largely for formal writing. Confusion with verb tenses and agreement of singular or plural nouns, as they have no direct equivalence in Chinese grammar, or because that verb tenses are expressed using a preposition or exclamation words at the end of the sentence. Use of prepositions on, in, and at are often interchangeable. Prepositions are also sometimes omitted after transitive verbs. For example, I will wait you at my flat, instead of I will wait for you at my flat. Over the phone, this becomes I am, a direct translation. Yes, no confusion. In Cantonese, yes represents an agreement, no represents a disagreement, whilst in English, yes represents a positive answer, no represents a negative answer. For example, she isn't pretty, is she, might attract the answer no when the native Cantonese speaker means I disagree. In my opinion she is pretty. There is becomes there has, have, a direct translation. Plural forms. There are no plural forms in Chinese, so plural and singular forms tend to be confused. The exclamation, "Congratulations," is often heard during expressions of joy for one's achievements. Actually is used much more frequently in Hong Kong English than in Standard English. The Cantonese equivalent is used more frequently. Actually is used in Standard English, using lend and borrow interchangeably, e.g., I will borrow you my car. In Chinese, the word is commonly used for both meanings, using rent and let interchangeably, omitting editing, e.g., he is charm, I feel touch, using editing interchangeably, e.g., bored and boring, e.g., I'm so boring. In Chinese, the word is commonly used for both meanings, using win instead of beat, e.g., I win you in the race. In Chinese, the word is commonly used for both meanings, using hear instead of listen, e.g., I hear the radio. In Chinese, the word is commonly used for both meanings. Numbers 10,000, numbers larger than 10,000. In Chinese, 10,000 is read as 1 myriad, 100,000 as 10 myriad, 1 million as 100 myriad. Even so, most people will not use the English word myriad, so this type of English is hardly ever seen. Fractions in Chinese, the denominator is read before the numerator, so 3/4 may wrongly be taken as 4/3. In this example, 3/4 in Chinese is literally out of 4 portions. 3. Discounts. The Chinese way of saying 10% off is 90% of the original price. This is often written as 9, which is understood to mean discounted to 9/10 of the original price. When 2 digits are given, the divisor is understood to be 100, e.g., 75 means 25% off. American, British spelling and word usage. Both British and American spellings are in common use, with the British variant predominating in official circles. When referring to the same thing, British vocabulary is more commonly used. For example, bin instead of garbage can, lift instead of elevator. Variations. End word. In informal conversation like instant messages, sentence final particles or interjections of Cantonese origin such as r, la, law, ma and waw, many of these being flavoring particles, are used at the ends of English sentences. I've eaten dinner. Law, I go la, by. Hong Kong vocabulary. Expressions. Some words and phrases widely understood in Hong Kong are rare or unheard of elsewhere. These often derive from Chinese, Anglo-Indian or Portuguese. Macanese. A chop is a seal stamp, e.g., a company chop is the seal stamp of a corporation. It is now used in some other Commonwealth countries as a non-official term. A taipan is a term used in the early 20th century for a business executive of a large corporation. An ama is a term used in the early 20th century for a live-in servant, now supplanted by helper. A trough is a cashier in a hospital, a government office, or a car park. Go down is a warehouse from the Malay gudang. Nala is a concrete-lined canal or and reinforced creek bed used to contain runoff. Nala entered the English language from Hindi. The word nala is used almost exclusively in Hong Kong. Lighty means red packets. Filth. Filth is a slang expression used to refer to people who look for employment opportunities in Hong Kong after being unsuccessful in looking for a job in the United Kingdom. The word seldom is used instead of rarely in informal English. The word seldom is considered formal in English-speaking countries. A raffle is invariably referred to as a lucky draw. Jetso is sometimes used to mean discount, a special offer. also means pecuniary advantage. Hong Kong foot, a literal translation of the Chinese slang term for athlete's foot. Recent academic work is also being done on the generation of new Hong Kong English vocabulary driven by computer-mediated communication between bilingual Cantonese and English speakers, rather than use complicated Chinese character keyboard interfaces. Hong Kong English speakers will text and email English translations to the prevalence that the English word often gains independent usage. Add oil. Verb, literally to lubricate, is used more as an idiom to encourage a team or person. The term has long been limited to the Chinese jiu, after originating as a cheer at the Macau Grand Prix in the 60s. But Hong Kong English speakers are increasingly using the English transliteration, locust nan, referring to tourists from the mainland and meant to connote both masses and a drain on local resources. The word is derogatory and originated during shortages of powdered milk, which anti-parallel trading protest is blamed on mainland parallel traders. Common mistakes made by the Cantonese-speaking community. A body check is used to refer to a medical checkup, not a contact with an opponent from the front. Outlook is often understood as appearance. The noun look or appearance in Cantonese is commonly preceded by the character for outer, using open instead of turn on and close instead of turn off for electronics such as televisions and fans. This is because open and turn on both use the same character in Cantonese. Close and turn off also use the same character. Read later for later. Read surface for surface. Read ponty for point.